And I'll just start this. Are you there? Hey, hey. Nope. Oh, those were some yummy chips. Listen, I offered you some chips, okay? It's the thought that, well, no. I have loved sour cream and onion chips as long as I can remember, as long as I knew that there was such a thing as chips. Is there really such a thing, though, as overwhelming yourself with sour cream and onion flavor? Those words with modifiers. There was one I was thinking of earlier today while I was cleaning up my studio in preparation for this podcast, and I can't remember what it was, but it's one of those words that I've never heard it without that extra, like, overwhelming. I've heard overwhelming and underwhelming, but I've never. What about just whelming? Feels very mediocre, right? Isn't that a color? It's like a brownish orange. Okra's good. I like fried okra, but if you've ever had like boiled okra, it's slimy. I like it fried in like cornmeal. I love collard greens. Nope. Or black eyed peas. Nope. I like beans for the most part, most beans. That sounds like a Brack thing. So, Space Ghost, for anyone listening who doesn't know what that is old. And I was about to say, come on. In your face. Well, good morning. At any time that you're listening to this lovely podcast. This is the Turned Up Podcast, and you have come at just the right time because you happen to start listening right as we started podcasting. You hit play, and it's like, bam, we decided to do a podcast at the same time. What are the odds? It is Monday if you're listening to this on the day it came out, or possibly Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or Saturday or Sunday, or maybe it's the next Monday or the next Tuesday or the next Wednesday. Stop you right there, Kanye. If you're listening right now, it's Thursday, and you should probably not be in the studio because we don't know you're here. That would be weird. Last week we had Jennifer Walter, one of our patrons, sitting in the studio with us, which is awesome. Having an audience. It's fun looking over and seeing her just like tear up laughing. I think just because she was laughing. She was definitely tearing up though. Robert, if I was listening to the Turned Up podcast and I wanted to sit in and listen to an episode be recorded live, how would I do that? And not only did she actually get to sit in, but while she was there, she recorded a show intro for us. And if you go back and listen, yeah, which was episode number 5. Yep. So today, as we record this, yesterday was Halloween. If you're listening to this last Wednesday, October 31st, 2018, because we know that people are going to be listening to this episode for years to come. It was Halloween, and I have a ton of candy. My kids did all the work for me, but let's be honest. It's the dad tax. And due to inflation, as Justin Forshaw, the third member of our band As We Ascend, let us all know, due to inflation, the dad tax has been raised this year.
It's pretty high this year. And speaking from actual experience from when I was a child, before candy was a thing, we just handed out empty corn cobs and stones and small pebbles for Halloween. The tax has significantly increased. I'm learning how to talk, by the way. It has significantly increased. And
You're doing really well.
as a dad, thank you. I taxed pretty severely. I came down hard on the people, and the people were my twins. And I'm kid-catted out right now.
Well, let's be honest. They want things like nice roads, good schools. You got to pay for that.
They want dinner, they want breakfast, sometimes they want lunch. They do want to ride in a car, they want to sleep with a roof over their head. Things like that. Some people would say are luxury items, but
They don't come cheap.
you got to tax to get that.
Well,
In our household.
I love candy, but I love chips more, and that is the honest truth. I would rather have Ruffles in French onion dip than a Snickers bar any day.
Preach. I feel like we're in church right
And I
now.
love Snickers.
But I do like candy. You don't have a sweet tooth like I do. I could eat candy all day, every meal, all 6 meals a day, just nothing but candy. But you, I think you're more of a savory person. You do like the desserts and stuff, but you don't like the candies or the cakes as much as I do.
And as you can tell, I like a lot of savory things.
I do enjoy the savory things as well. So if you look at me, you'll see all of that.
And
Savory and sweet.
there's something else I see when I look at you, Robert.
Is it my halo?
It's a little dim. I see someone who has been nominated for a Grammy. I see someone who has won at multiple Dove Awards, from what I understand. I see someone who has earned himself one gold record that I know of, but I feel like multiples that just have not made their way. Because how many years did it take to get the one that you... Takes a while to get them. All for your work as a producer and engineer, Mr. Robert Venable of robertvenable.com. The guy is absolutely insane. If you're listening, you've turned into the right podcast for someone who really knows what they're talking about. Robert has been doing this for literally hundreds of years. He helped invent recording. No, but he's very well accomplished. He even has his own Wikipedia page. Just Google Robert Venable. But Robert, you've worked with some of the biggest artists literally in the entire world. One of my favorites, Kelly Clarkson, who's just all over the headlines these days. 21 Pilots, who's out on tour right now. Megadeth, of course, a legend, as well as... Really? The Walkers and Dentures tour, is that? It's anyway. You recorded Dave Mustaine's demo back when he was a kid. Not true. But not true. You've worked with some of the heaviest hitters in rap as well, rap and hip hop. And I'm honored to call you one of my greatest friends in the entire world and someone that I get to work with all the time. But something that I truly admire about you more than any of those other accomplishments, and I mean leaps and bounds more, is something that I recently found out about you. It's on your Wikipedia page. Make sure you Google Robert Venable. And I just found this out, that you once held a world record for the smallest blanket ever to be used on a cricket while jumping off of a step at the bottom of a courthouse in Akron, Ohio.
That was so much information. Let's rewind this. Akron, Ohio, the courthouse. That's on High Street. Look it up. It's true. Akron, Ohio, known as the Silicon Valley of the 19th century. Akron, Ohio, the world headquarters of rubber.
How do I feel like you have Googled Akron, Ohio after seeing my notes?
Do you know that Akron, Ohio is known for the BF Goodrich tires and the World Championship of like derby racing?
He says as he reads off of his MacBook.
So there's a little misconception about the world record, and I kind of let it slide. I didn't want to correct him because I didn't want them to feel bad about themselves.
We're talking about the Guinness Book, right?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, are there others?
Well, I hold my own world record ceremony every year.
We should pose a rival to Guinness Book.
The ideas.
The Budweiser Book of World Records. Why does Guinness get to do that?
I'm fairly certain we're like 20 minutes in right now, and
Oh, great. We should probably start
oh no.
so the world record actually, it was a little misconstrued. I didn't make the smallest blanket for cricket. I made a smallest blanket for a lady named Sarah Cricket, who actually married Francis Decker in January 5th of 1657 at St. Anthelon's, Budge Row in London, and they honeymooned in Akron, Ohio. They came to the great old United States.
I can't keep a straight face. This is beautiful that you have.
So she came over here with her beloved betrothed Francis Decker, and they honeymooned on the steps of the courthouse on High Street.
I can't breathe.
I knitted a blanket for them for their wedding gift.
As you were jumping off the step.
And she jumped off the steps.
Okay.
It was raining, and they gave me a world record for that. I guess it was a slow day.
I can see through the through the centuries how that has the details have changed. Got it. They chiseled it in stone first and then wrote it down and then well, I'm glad we got that straightened out.
We did too. Yeah, I totally cheated and looked at your notes on what you were gonna say that I did this time.
Which is funny because the whole time we've been talking, I've been seeing you like every once in a while you're like doing something on your laptop and I thought, what is he doing, huh?
Well, I was typing over there. I did. I totally spent 10 minutes researching Akron, Ohio, where the courthouse was, what it's known for, people with the last name Cricket.
Oh, my stomach hurts. Oh, that is awesome.
Oh man, pinning that Guinness World Record to my name with the one and only Jake Jones. You mentioned a minute ago the band As We Ascend and our third member Justin Forshaw, but he is the first member of the band As We Ascend, the singer and the guitarist and producer and engineer and mixer of our album Farewell to Midnight, which came out 2 years ago now.
Already, yeah.
Also, songwriter with Shoalsville Music, based out of right here in Nashville, Tennessee. And you produce, you engineer, you mix, you write songs, you do all sorts of things that are ridiculously amazing. You've got awards on the wall and plaques and framed. What's the thing called? I guess it's like a framed. I don't know. It's for the Billboard #1 charting song that you co-wrote, mixed, produced, engineered, all that fun stuff.
Thank you, Hobby Lobby.
Thank you, Hobby Lobby. And one of my favorite things about you, Jake Jones, that you already know, but I don't think the masses know about you yet, is you on the side of being a producer and engineer, love cleaning aquariums. But I didn't want to spill the beans on this, but tell everybody what you collect while doing that.
So I started collecting back when I acquired my turtle Albert, Gabe for short.
Gabe is a common nickname for Albert.
And I don't like to let people know that I do this. I like to collect fingernails that wind up in the bottom of aquariums. Aquariums, terrariums, fish tanks, whatever you want to call them, whatever they are. Doesn't matter if they're reptiles or fish. You'd be amazed at the sheer amount of fingernails that wind up in the bottom of these things. So I actually have fingernails from former First Lady Barbara Bush, as well as former First Lady Hillary Clinton. I've also collected fingernails from the Queen of England. Recently, our trip to Europe, I collected some fingernails from Greg. Yep. I also, there's a lady named Sharon that I have 3 of her fingernails. The thing is, and the honest truth is, they're all around. If you go to your friend's house, look at the carpet next to the couch, you're going to see some. Maybe they're fingernails, maybe they're toenails. Who knows? Who cares? There's a lot of practical uses for them, but more than anything else, you could sell them. And that's really what I like to do. And they're worth a lot of money. Yep. And so check out my eBay seller page, FTRL C-4963-128 nails.301. And that's where you can go in. You can buy fingernails from Dale. I also have some from Sally.
Time that seller name was?
I'm sorry. I got it. Sorry. My throat's dry. Oh, my word.
We're so stupid.
Maybe the longest intro of any episode ever, but I am excited about this one.
This concludes our episode. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
Listening for an hour. Peace. No, today we're talking about something that affects your life and my life every single day. Things that we've had to deal with for our entire career.
Hemorrhoids. And this is a serious thing in the music.
Oh, wait, that's next up. That's this next episode. Next week.
Here we go.
Different podcast.
Oh, yeah, the psychology of music. This is a real thing. As producers and engineers and artists, Jake, you and I, we deal a lot with this. It's the art of kind of playing brain games and mind tricks on the people we work with, including ourselves, in order to get the best possible results in the studio.
So, Robert and I, we both produce, and we also happen to engineer as well. And when we're recording bands, when we're recording artists, no matter what genre it's in, people get into the studio and the song's written, right? The hard work is done. Maybe it's for a record label or a manager. Maybe they've just hired us to do the work themselves. But most of the groundwork has already been laid, and it's time to get down to business. So all the technical work is going to sit on the shoulders of the engineer, and depending on the session, could be one of us. We could be engineering our own project that we're producing, or we could have a separate engineer. But as a producer, we have to step up to the plate, and 90% of what we're doing is a mind game. And the other 10% is magic.
I mean, there's mind games and magic. It's true. There's a lot that goes into recording a song, besides the technical stuff that choosing the right microphones and where the microphones go on the instrument or voice, the preamps and compression or EQ settings you use, what kind of digital audio workstation or console you're using to record it, if you're going to tape, if you're going to ones and zeros on a hard drive, how you mix things, the plugins and the programs you use, the outboard gear, the settings, the electricity, voltage, everything that goes into this. There's so much that's technical. All that aside, there's 10 times that more worth of psychology and the way we need to relate with the artist, relate to ourselves, and just make the session flow in the right way to get what we need.
Well, funny enough, the average listener of music, you listening to this podcast, most likely, unless you work in the music industry, you're an artist or a producer, an engineer. If you just enjoy music, you don't care about any of those things. You don't care what kind of preamp or drum set or what model guitar, for the most part. But the thing you care about more than anything else is, does this make me feel anything? Do I believe what this person's saying?
You want to know that in itself is a product of psychology.
100%.
It's something that we have taken into consideration as producers, that we want to make you as a listener feel a certain way, hear a certain thing, focus on a certain part or instrument or melody, and we've taken the time to draw this out very intricately in a very preconceived plan, in a matter of fact way, just to make you do certain things, like a puppeteer does with a marionette.
That's what I was about to say. None of that is an accident. When you hear a song and it reaches a certain point that you get goosebumps, that's not a mistake. To a point, magic does happen. That 10% of, wow, didn't expect that to happen. Really quick, before we go any further, I do want to differentiate between a producer and an engineer. Now, if you're the average listener to music, you might have, back in the day, you might have looked through your CD booklet and seen, produced by blah, 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 mixed by blah blah blah, engineered, and a lot of times, sometimes the engineer is credited, sometimes just the studio is
There's
credited.
all the stuff you skipped over when you're looking for the lyrics or
Right,
just
right.
reading into the lyrics.
So the big difference between a producer and engineer is the everything. I mean, the fundamental job. And in today's economy, as well as you know,
Just the way it is.
what do I say? Yeah, like the weather, the atmosphere of today's music industry. A lot of times, the producer and the engineer are the same people. An engineer is just someone who is doing technical things. An audio engineer, they could be the person responsible for setting up microphones, uh, pressing record. They could be the person responsible for mixing.
It's all
Um,
technical stuff, and a lot of it is not creative. It's more of trying to capture the sound the way it sounds in the room or in real life in the producer's vision or artist's vision, trying to make that sound accurate and clean without being distorted or muffled or thin or crispy. Just trying to capture it accurately or precisely.
exactly. And a producer, I like to tell people who have no idea what the term producer actually means is think about a movie or a TV show and what the director does. The director has his director seat. A lot of times, I mean, the director's not there behind the camera pressing record every time. He might be looking at a screen to see what the camera's picking up,
See if it captures what his vision is showing.
but he has a vision for what that television show or movie should look like, feel like. He'll tell the actors what to do or what to say. At the last minute, he might change a line. Um, so that is in the music industry. That's more or less a producer's job. They direct the outcome of the song or album or EP that the artist is there to record.
They can usually see, I say they, we can usually see the end result from a very early stage. Sometimes it's just a piano or a guitar and a vocal, and I can already hear what it's going to sound like with a wall of guitars and drums and synths and sax and vocals. And you can take that same demo idea of just the guitar and vocal and send it to you, Jake, and you might have a totally different end vision. That's why we're different producers, but you and I kind of have the same kind of vision in the end anyway. We can kind of be on that wavelength. But I like to explain what a producer is as a puppeteer. We get to tell the band what to do. We can chop up the songs. We can, we just know the end result and know how to get there. And we rely on the engineer and their technical abilities to make it happen on a physical level.
Now, the in a lot of cases or instances, you and I wind up wearing both hats at the same time, and there are some advantages and disadvantages to that. Um,
It does save money.
it saves a lot of money. It also, I know for myself personally, I it can sometimes be easier for me to say, oh wait, I have an idea. Let me record that really quick, rather than oh wait, I have an idea. Hey, Mr. Engineer, let's go back to that one part. That one part. What's the right over there? No, keep going.
It's totally frustrating for me sometimes working with third-party engineers in different recording studios that aren't my own. Sometimes I rely on them because I don't know how the room is wired up. I don't know how their patch bay is, or their console, the thing with all the buttons and faders and knobs. I don't know how it's wired up. So it can be a number of different ways. But so I need them to like show me where those ways are. However, sometimes because I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, I know what I want done and how to do it the quickest in the way I want to. Like you were saying, and sometimes it's frustrating to wait on them to have to explain it or say, no, 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 not there. Nope, I want it to just let me do it.
One of the downsides of being a producer and also engineering a project that you're producing, as it pertains specifically to recording the audio, is that you might be focused more on the quality of the sound and less on the quality of the performance. And so that's a an extra challenge that comes along with trying to do both at the same time. Is you have to be very careful to make sure that you do have that it sounds good. You're using the right preamps or console or whatever kind of technical jargon that goes along with that, and that you're then paying attention to. Did you say that right? Not just did you pronounce it properly, but did I feel it?
Like I totally missed that you were just saying fart, fart, fart the whole
Right.
I know it didn't clip.
Right.
The EQ sounded great on it.
Crystal clear.
Sometimes I know in the mix and stuff that I've produced in this year myself, I'm like, wow, they sang the whole wrong verse there. How did I not catch that? Because I was listening to something else. I was listening, but paying attention to something else.
Yep.
We should just dive in. Let's talk about the psychology of a producer.
So the psychology of a producer is really that. I mean, I feel like we did a pretty good job of covering kind of with broad strokes the idea. Your job is less about whether or not the snare sounds good. Your job more is the drummer hitting the snare at the right time.
And that's important. There's a feel there, and there's a vision that you have to accomplish. And the thing with being a producer that I don't think you or I struggle with is the God complex of being the guy in charge. Ultimately, in a recording studio, whoever's paying the bill is the most in charge, is the boss, because you need to make them happy because they're paying for it.
Called
Record label,
the executive producer.
which sometimes you'll never meet. Sometimes
Yep.
never shows up in the studio, but they're listed as executive producer. They're the money bags.
Yep.
But not letting that get to your head as a producer. Not walking into the room, I've got 15,000 gold records and a box of Kellogg's cornflakes, and I think you should bow down to me. You gotta let that go.
Which, as an artist, I've worked with producers
Oh, I know.
just like that.
I know people like that. It's tough hanging out with them and having a conversation with them without hearing the conversation switch to me.
I'll never forget. I've sold 32 million records out of this studio. Heard it over and over and over again.
Good for you. However, let other people toot your horn. Don't toot your own horn.
Toot.
So with that hierarchy in the studio of the producer being essentially the one telling the engineer what to do, there's a lot of psychology that goes in behind that. A, as the producer, keeping yourself in check, and B, as the engineer, making the producer think that he is in charge when sometimes you need to do things on a technical level that kind of contradict what he's telling you to do for some reason or another. You don't want to cross him, you don't want to disagree with him, but you have to do certain things or else he'll regret it later. So you have to make him think it's the right idea. So we should probably jump into something like that.
Yeah. So, and this is going to come into play here in a minute, but there is kind of a, what would you say, like pseudo political hierarchy. I think with any organization, with any, whether it's a company or a government or anything, there has to be someone in charge. There has to be people who will kind of like listen to what that person says. So there has to be someone calling the shots. And in a typical recording session, that's the producer, and underneath him is the engineer. And the reason for that is because the producer is getting paid for his ideas, for his brain, his knowledge. The engineer is getting paid for his expertise with being able to record quickly, proficiently, accurately, and make things sound good. And for that reason, normally an engineer doesn't give his opinion. And that can be crucial because if there's a lot of opinions flying around in a recording session, because everybody's got a different way that they think it should sound, it can get hairy.
Opinions are like buttholes. Everybody has one. Some stink more than others.
And also hairy.
And there goes our listenership.
So today we're talking specifically about the role of a producer.
And more specifically about kind of the games we play mentally with the artists or with ourselves. So with the engineers or vice versa. And there are some things we're going to share that might get us, not hired for the next gig. What we have to say, but
It's very psychological. You've heard the term "you're in your head," and as a producer, it's our job to get in your head. We have to do it at all costs, by any means necessary. It's absolutely crucial that we do, because that's how we're going to get the best performance. Because an amazing performance can be the difference between a successful song and an unsuccessful song. It could be the difference, quite literally, in millions of dollars and 5 plays on Spotify. Just something as minor as a convincing performance.
absolutely. And you and I have listened to mixes by colleagues even faking it would sound better than whatever they just did. It sounded like they were reading out of a book.
Completely adversely, we've both heard records that sounded like garbage, poorly engineered, poorly mixed, terrible, but the production was so amazing that those records still sold millions of copies, and those artists are still around today.
I listen to some of my favorite albums and just hear how poorly they were recorded or how poorly they were mixed, and just I just love them because of the performances. There was some heart and soul in there, and I don't mean the piano rendition. But one of the big secrets that you and I use, and other producers, you could ask any of them, that we use to get the best performances to make it the artist's idea, like make it their thought or their thing. And this is a trick I use with my kids too. Like sometimes when a singer, let's use a singer as an example, is in there trying their best to do something, and sometimes you want to suggest another idea to them, but they're kind of stuck in their way, like they know how they think it should sound. You got to kind of word things in a way to kind of make them come up with the idea themselves, like, hey, well, what if we try it this way? And in your back of your mind, you're like, finally, get them to say that for 10 minutes. Because some personalities, if you, they don't take criticism well, and there are a lot of egos in the music industry, and some of the bigger egos are on the lesser well-known people, and some of the bigger names that you and I have worked with are the most humble, down-to-earth, open to suggestion type people ever.
Well, I think that says a lot about the kind of the key to their success is being willing to take criticism and also take ideas and say, let's try it.
Like when we worked with Brad Arnold, we're going to drop a name, we'll pick that up later. Before he goes down, when he's in the studio tracking a song that we were working on, he was completely open to whatever we wanted. Like, dude, you've been doing this since we were in junior high, and whatever you want to do. And he's like, nah, man, just you approach me. I'm like, this is crazy. But it was true, and any suggestion we threw out there, he wasn't like, how about this? He was like, oh, that's a great one. Yes, do that. Let's try it.
And I will say something that I noticed about that session in particular was how quickly you and I slipped into producer mode. Suddenly we were talking to him like we would any other artist because he allowed himself to be in the position of a normal artist and not like I'm Brad Arnold from Three Doors Down and I know what I'm doing and you don't.
So and that's part of the thing. That's another aspect of psychology is they want to be instructed sometimes. So maybe sometimes we have to make it their idea, and other times they're like, "Hey, we hired you as a producer. We need that instruction." There are some people who have that personality, like just tell me what to do so I have a direction. And we slip into that producer mode, like, "Hey, do this. It's going to sound amazing. Let's try it out." And that's when we get their best take is when they take that direction or they have a specific goal in mind.
So I started doing this. I should do the math. I tell everyone 13 years ago, right at 13 years ago, maybe 12 years and 10 months ago. It is very specific because it's something, it doesn't matter. So when I first started, I was engineering everything and calling myself a producer because I didn't know the difference. And I also didn't realize that just simply recording something wasn't enough. You have to have a vision for the final outcome. And really what you're doing while you're in the studio is just manipulating the circumstances to create the end. The famous saying, the means justify the end. And so there are a lot of means to get where you need to go. And not every artist is the same. Not every vocalist, guitarist, drummer responds to the same thing. I know something else that you and I use all the time is to kind of break an artist down to that could be stern, that could be mean, that could be loving, that could be understanding. There's a lot that kind of goes into that.
And there's quite a bit, like you said, that goes into that. There's quite a bit of setup that goes into that, where you can kind of tell in the first 10 minutes you meet somebody like, this is going to be one of those sessions where this singer's going to end up crying or this singer's going to end up really mad at me. But and I'm going to be completely honest, this is one of these things that I probably shouldn't say in the podcast, and we can edit it out if we need to, but where I've pre-planned and specifically targeted a certain member in a band to just kind of be mean to. And it's not my personality. I have no mean bone in my body.
I don't think I've ever seen you be mean to anyone.
But I get in this mode where I can tell, like, just little demeaning cuts, which are all specifically lined up. And sometimes you have to have a little safe conversation with someone else in the band, like, "Hey, dude, I'm going to play this card. It's not me, but it's going to break him down. It's going to get him to start listening to me or start trying other things outside of his box. Let his guard down a little bit. He doesn't know everything, and YouTube videos aren't the end to being the best guitarist in the studio." So yeah, there are times where you have to have that little side conversation, like, "Hey, just let you know, it's all fine." I remember one time we were live streaming in the studio that I had 2 years ago, and one of the players' wives were on the live stream, and she was chatting like, "Why are you being so mean to my husband? Like, it's like, for real, stop." And I had to get her number from one of the other band members, like, "Just text her and tell her that this is all part of a plan, and she'll see it." She goes, "I totally get it. It's like, I have to make it his idea to take out the trash, or he won't do it, even though that kind of thing." Like, that's the personality you have to have sometimes. You have to play that card. You have to play the, "Hey, man, maybe we can just, is there something else we can do? Maybe we have to get a different guitar. I don't know. Are your fingers cramping up?" You just start saying little things like, "Why are you doing it this way?" in order to get the best performance out of them. Because instead of them sitting back like, "I'm the best guitar player in the world, I can do this in my sleep," like, no, you need to pay attention. No, you need to tune your guitar. Like, that kind of stuff. And to get it out of them, you have to be a douche.
You know, one of the lines that a producer that I'd worked with before used to always throw out, and I heard it a million times. "That's a good way to not sell records." And I've even stolen it a few times, you know. But he would say it's so like, you know, "Man, I don't know about that idea. What if I played this riff instead?" And he would come back with, "Well, yeah, sure. I mean, it's a good way to not sell records."
That's a good way of saying, or not.
Right. And it's funny because it's something that I remembered, and it was kind of a chuckle at the moment, but also okay, yeah, we're not going to do that. Conversation's over. Um,
Which is another way to communicate with the artist. Sometimes they handle humor well, and you're like, "Man, that's a good way to not sell records. That's funny. Okay, I won't do it." And other people are like, "No, he'll sell records."
it's a good testament. I mean, I think an effective producer has to be a people person. You're not going to find too many producers, if any, that are hardcore introverts, don't like talking, that are really quiet. And if they're calling themselves a producer and they're not coaching you through whatever you're recording in the studio, they're not a producer. They're an engineer. And yeah, and there's been times, Robert, that you and I have worked together with artists and pushed them so much that all of a sudden the mic goes quiet and we walk into the live room and they're literally laying on the ground crying.
That's not happened just once. That's happened several times.
And
There's a lot of stress that goes on in the studio.
there's a lot that, you know, again, like I was saying earlier, you've done all this work. You know, you've written these songs. Sometimes, you know, this might be your life's work. These songs, you may have spent the last 10 years writing the perfect record. And now it's time to figuratively etch it in stone, because we know once those recordings go on the internet, they're there forever.
Someone's gonna listen to them.
And those,
Gonna find it.
as a producer, you have to remember that those thoughts are circling around in your artist's mind the whole time, and they want to put their best foot forward, and they have entrusted you to figure out what their best foot is, because they don't know. And it's, you know, we're all our own worst critics, but we're also, none of us have a truly accurate perception of ourselves.
Think of it as a big giant funnel or an upside down pyramid. And in the top of this upside down pyramid or funnel, all these artists, like, whole lives are poured into their experiences, the way they were, like, brought up, their relationship they have with their parents or husbands or wives or girlfriends or boyfriends, or anybody they've encountered with, like, any all their finances, all of their relationships and their socials, and anything that they have, all of their lyrics are all funneling down, and it finally comes to a head, finally comes to a point, finally exits the funnel at you. You, as the producer, have to take all of their life, all of their work, or if it's a band, all of their lives' works, all of them combined, and pinpoint it into their vision and nail it. Or else they'll be mad at you, other people will be mad at you, they've wasted all their money, all their time on that moment. So you have to make sure you're on the same page with them, and making sure that you get to know where they're coming from and where they want to go, or else the whole thing is just going to explode.
So, something that we talked about in our episode, kind of dealing with how, as human beings, we're the only creatures on Earth capable of fully understanding, enjoying, and having that emotional connection with music is specifically how the music affects us emotionally. And I can tell you, going to therapy myself, uh, dealing with certain tragedies throughout my life, whatever it is, more than once I've had counselors turn to music to evoke an emotional response in a situation where otherwise I couldn't find the emotion for it. And so that's how powerful music is. But in order for the listener to feel that emotion, the singer has to fully grasp and convey that emotion. And sometimes artists, especially, depending on the genre, sometimes these artists, they're not singing songs that they wrote. They're not singing songs that are based on their own personal life experiences. They're based on the songwriter's experiences or whatever. And that's a moment where we have to stop and say, okay, turn the music off for a moment and let's discuss what this song is saying and let's go there.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times I know personally. I know you've done the same. We've had to talk to a vocalist and say, like, I'm not buying what you're selling. I'm not picking up what you're laying down. If it's a sad song, like, why is it sad? What is this about? And I know there was an artist that you and I worked on collectively with a female singer, and she was in there crying because we put her in that place. We literally got the take in one take, one recording after she went to that spot, and I realized what she wrote that song about, or what it was about, and what it was trying to convey. As soon as she broke down to that spot, she nailed it. One take, no edits, nothing. I left it just as it was, and that was the take that made the record.
If I recall, you didn't even tune that vocal, did you?
If I did, it was lightly, but no, it was just one of those things where I think if there were imperfections, I think that was emotional and intentionally left there. Kind of getting goosebumps thinking about it, but it's just you should look it up. Are we allowed to say it? Yes, we can say it.
Well, they're an amazing band.
Look up the band Above Rattlesnakes. There's a ballad on there, their EP, that is really good.
Is it No Fear?
No Fear is the name of the song, and she just nailed it. Just front to back, top to bottom, straight across the board. As soon as she had like watery face, red cheeks, and tear stains as she was singing it. But it starts off like a ballad and gets pretty ballad and gets really big, and the whole thing she just nailed it.
And the thing is, again, when you're recording a vocalist specifically, you've got the engineer and he's watching the faders and he's watching the meters and he's making sure things aren't clipping. And depending on the dynamic of the producer and engineer, which a lot of times a producer will have an engineer that he likes and they work together all the time.
Right.
Um,
Knowing ahead of time what the producer wants is a huge key in staying hired as an engineer.
yes.
Predicting the next step.
So the engineer might even be listening for the pitch of the artist because what the producer is more focused on is, are you delivering the emotion that I need? And whether that's rock and roll and you need an angry response, you need that angst, or it's a happy song, pop kind of stuff. Sometimes even like TV film sort of music, which is pop alternative, telling someone to smile while they sing. And they're like, well, I'm not happy. It's like, okay, well, as your producer, let's take a minute and figure out how to get you actually happy.
Get happy.
um, and
To totally interrupt you, one of those things that
I'm gonna let you finish.
that happened last time. One of those things that kind of helps us get them in that happy mode is false encouragement.
Yes.
One of those things where, yeah, it's kind of being untruthful, but you're going to get the end result right this way, or better, because if you have a guitarist or a singer or drummer, whatever, who's just down on themselves, like, oh man, it's like the 30th time we've had to play this riff or sing this line, I'm just never going to get it. If you're like, sometimes it just takes the producer waking up and just going, that was it. Whatever you just did, that was it. Let's do that again. Oh my gosh. It's like, did anybody else hear that? And like you're like looking around the room like, come on, guys. Like, oh yeah, that was it. That was the one. No, but like if you can sell that to the artist, like, really? Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do it again. And all of a sudden they're perking up and they're starting to feel better about themselves. You might start getting the takes you need instead of the whole take number 146. My fingers are bleeding.
Yeah, I can tell you, even recently, within the last few weeks, I had an artist in, and the session was, I mean, it was like pulling teeth, and he happened to actually have one good take. There was something that he did that was like first time he did it was amazing, and I freaked out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was absolutely incredible." Just what you said, do that again. The rest of the session, he was knocking things out in one or two takes. Whereas maybe it was taking 10 or 15 before that. It was just, getting really monotonous. Some artists, they just need encouragement, but there is a fine line between encouraging the person you're working with to try to pull a good takeout and not encouraging them to play it poorly or sing it poorly. They might be like, "Oh, okay, I'll do exactly what I just did." It's like, well, no, what you just did sucked.
You have to learn as a producer playing these mind games when to use certain tricks and when not to. You have to know how they're going to respond to what you say in advance before you say it. Because if you say, "Oh, that was awesome, let's do it again," they might mess up again on purpose because they knew that's what you wanted, or played the wrong note. But you have to kind of gauge the personality. You have to be a people person, like you said earlier, Jake. And every artist is different. Every single person that we have in the studio responds to what we say in a different manner. And you have to learn that sometimes in a very short notice. Just trying to figure out, okay, what kind of personality is this person? By gauging on how they react to other things you've said just in normal conversation. I have a
Right.
feeling this is how you're going to respond to what I'm about to say.
One of my favorite kind of things, and I use this all the time in life, and I actually respond well to it as well, is the compliment sandwich.
I
Um,
saw the notes. I have no idea where this is going.
the compliment sandwich. Okay, so it's Robert,
Yes, Jake.
you are killing it today, man. Whatever you're doing is awesome. It would be really cool maybe if we just if you just tried closing your mouth a little more. Um, just maybe not talking as much. But everything you're saying is amazing.
I see. You took a compliment. You put something. Yeah. What's the word? Critical.
Criticism, yeah,
Yeah. In
critical, yeah.
between another compliment.
Yep,
Compliment. Criticism. Compliment. Like an ice cream sandwich.
it's a compliment sandwich.
I like that.
And I know,
Maybe the same thing. I should
I
develop that.
I know that it works for me as well. It's like because you leave them with a good taste in their mouth, they're going to be a lot more receptive to what you had to say.
Right.
And but it doesn't work with everyone. Like we were just saying, everyone is different.
And
People
people
respond
see
to
through
things.
it. Yeah. I don't think people listening to this podcast right now realize how much we have to think about the psychology behind the artist and how much of our job is mental. I mean, yeah, it's creative and the whole vision of the song and musical and all that stuff, but more of our job is relating with the artist. And I don't think that people really understand that. Now, hopefully, this is opening their eyes to it. But not only is it the artist that we have to convince of certain things, sometimes if we're engineering, we have to convince the producer of other things, and vice versa. If we're producer, we have to get the engineer to do certain things our way, playing mind tricks all over the field.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that. You and I are both artists, and I didn't say this earlier when I was introducing you, but you play drums for As We Ascend, the band that we're in. There's the number one plaque for it. There's best new artist of the year as well as rock album of the year. Um, so so you play drums. I play guitar. I sing. Justin Forshaw. But something I've been an artist now for quite a while, several years, performing in a larger arena. And when you do that, if you don't have a dedicated monitor engineer, someone who is in charge of adjusting the level of all the other instruments that you hear while you're performing, um, then you have what's called a house engineer.
That's what you, as the audience member, the ticket buyer, hears.
And there have been so many times where I'm like, oh, I want more of my guitar in the monitor. And I just want a little bit, just a little bit more. And so I stick my finger up. I'm like, hey, give me some more, give me some more, give me some more. Perfect. That's it. That's what I need right there. That's it. Don't touch anything else. And I don't know till later, or maybe right then, that, oh, the monitor engineer was sending a text message. He didn't actually touch anything. It's
Yeah.
all psychological.
I play that game in the studio too, and I think I've been the victim of that as well with engineers I've used. But sometimes, while working with other producers, and I'm just hired to engineer for some reason or another, I don't have time. Like I don't have a second to get over to like what they asked me to do. So I'm over there on Pro Tools on the computer, typing, stuff. And he's like, "Hey, when you get second, can you just adjust that 4 kilohertz tone on the snare drum?" I'm like, "Yes, sir. Just a second." Like I'm getting ready to hit save over here on the computer, and before I slide over there to the console to turn the knob, they're like, "Oh, that's perfect." So I just slide back over. I'm like, "You like that?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's perfect. Whatever you just did." I'm thinking in my head, what I just did was slide over from one side to the other. But cool. If he's happy with that, totally a mind game, and he's happy with that. But there's something on a console.
Yes, so I've never heard of this until today. You were telling me about it, and I think it's so funny that this, sometimes because we work in our own little bubbles all the time, we don't realize that these kinds of things are just they're part of the human condition. Every human on earth does this, and manufacturers of recording consoles have wised up to this.
Yeah, so there's something in the industry, some of us insiders we call flip mode. It's a button on the console. The console is the big board with all the knobs and faders. It looks like a spacecraft getting ready to take off. There's a, okay, paint a picture here. On this console, there's all those little round buttons that turn things, whatever. But the faders, the things that slide up and down, there's usually two sets. A small set right above the larger set. And the large set's the one you see in all the movies where people have their fingers on them, pushing them up and down. And there's a smaller set right above those that you really don't pay attention to. The small set is usually what's going to tape or to the computer to record, to the hard drive, whatever. So when the microphones are plugged into the console, those affect the level. You turn down the small fader, you don't see the waveform on the computer anymore. It's not there. But it comes back out of the computer into the big faders, so you can monitor it in the room and listen. So if you turn those faders up and down, you don't hear it anymore, but it's still being recorded for later use. So producers wised up to this, and they're like, well, if I want to push that guitar a little bit more, I'm going to go push the small fader. There's a button on the console called, it could be called a number of things depending on what manufacturer. There's a flip button or a main to monitors, main, like all sorts of different buttons, names for the same button. But what it does is it flips the small and large fader functions.
Reverses them.
So if all of a sudden you just nonchalantly hit it, because you know the producer's been over there touching buttons they're not supposed to, it's called producer mode. It's where all of a sudden they go over there and nudge that small fader when they think you're not looking to try to give it a little bit more level on the hard drive. But really, it's not doing anything other than making it louder in the room. They're like, yeah, that's what I want. And you're like, whatever floats your boat. Yeah, producer mode, and that's just kind of feeding their ego, making them feel like they did something or accomplished something, and that's like a little psychological trick that the console makers put in there to kind of help them out. I mean, there's other functional reasons for that, but I call it producer mode, and a lot of other people do too, just to kind of keep them,
Happy and confident.
confident, and that's a part of something that needs to happen in the studio for sure.
Confidence really is key. I mean, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you do, if you're headed to your job right now, if you're, if you sell houses or it doesn't matter if you're working at a convenience store as a cashier clerk.
You're about to walk into the bedroom and your wife's waiting for you.
There you go. Confidence. And the music industry is no different. The artist has to be confident. They have to feel like what they're doing is working and that it's good and that the audience, that it's just what they need to do. And there's some things that play into keeping them confident, because I have been in sessions where maybe I was using, I was trying to beat down an artist to get a performance out of them, and then I realize all of a sudden they've lost all confidence. I said the one thing, whatever it was, that suddenly now they feel like a failure. They can't do it. And we've been in recording sessions where bands have, they've flown in from out of town. They've paid a lot of money to stay in a hotel and come, they're paying for the recording studio and all the fees, everything associated. And they've completely lost confidence and the session is over. They cancel the rest of the week and they have to go home and figure out something else because there's just no way that they can continue.
And you can't really prepare for that.
Sometimes that just happens.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, there's a lot of stress that happens in the studio. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of lifetime of things leading up to this. Or I don't want to disappoint my parents again. Or I don't want to put out another record which bombs, or whatever it may be. That's all leading up to this moment in the funnel. And we talked about some of these before, like keeping them amped up or portraying the
I mean, sometimes it could be as simple as just making it really loud while they're listening back to the song, just turning it up really loud, and they're like, "That's awesome."
I know sometimes with singers turning up the hi-hat, just giving those subdivisions, like suddenly they're right on time and tempo is good again. Or taking a headphone off of one ear and all of a sudden they hear themselves in the room, sounds more natural, like they're singing in the shower rather than singing with their hands over their ears.
You and I last year were actually working with an artist who we were working on the song. Midway through the session, they just lost confidence. They're like, "Wait a minute, that doesn't sound like I thought it was supposed to sound." And the truth is that no, it's not their job to understand that. Well, we're just recording. We haven't edited anything. None of this is really mixed. It's just, but when we saw that happening, we realized very quickly that, okay, we're going to have to maybe add some effects to this, add an echo or a delay or reverb or whatever.
Make it sound more like a finished record in their ears so they kind of get the whole picture.
And they have confidence.
Yeah. And sometimes then it's possible you can use auto-tune live.
Yeah.
Some circumstances where it messes with me. I've tried singing with auto-tune on and I hear something different in my brain than what I'm hearing in my ears, and it messes with me. Some singers, I don't know if they have that. But yeah, it totally jacks with me when I have the tuned version in my headphones and not in my brain before I'm actually singing. So I know that some artists, it helps them to hear the note they're supposed to hear. And sometimes you and I have done this where we either play a piano melody or something, or we'll go in there and sing it ourselves, even though I'm not a great singer. I know you are. And like, hey, just match my pitch.
You're a great
And
singer.
suddenly like, oh yeah, that's what you wanted. I got it. I got it. I got it. And all of a sudden you get a take.
Well, I was going to say, like, the vibe in a room
Oh, that's everything.
can be everything. And I was about to say the decor of the room, the lighting, I was just showing you, I just picked up these cool Edison lights for my room. I've got a band coming in to track in here next week. They're so cool. But even, and not just with artists and performers, but even record labels, managers, all that kind of stuff. The way your studio looks can be the difference in getting a job or not.
Oh yeah, I mean the way it looks, even on social media pictures, dude.
Yeah.
And this is no lie. Here's a secret story. I haven't told anybody this. I was working with, I guess you could call him another producer, and he had brought in a band, and we were going to co-produce this band. And I didn't know, how he found this band or what was sold to this band as far as like, hey, you need to come work with myself and Robert Venable. But the band came into town, and as soon as they got into my studio, I could tell something was weird. I'm like, why are they acting weird? And they're having band meetings and going outside and talking and coming back in and just acting weird. And at the end of day one of them finally said, like, hey, this isn't like the pictures we saw on the website.
No way.
And I'm like, I haven't maintained that website in years. Like, I even forgot that website existed. It was a website for an old recording studio. All the gear was the same or better, but the pictures were of a previous location. And like, I'm like, why are they being weird? I'm like, well, it just doesn't look like what we thought it'd be like. Who cares? Like, I'm better now. It's been years since that studio, and my craft has been honed even tighter, and the gear's better, and I know how to operate it. And newsflash, this goes to anybody listening right now. Most studios that you hear stuff on the radio, where the songs were recorded at, aren't anything like what you've seen in the TV show Nashville or any movies recording studios. Some of them, and a lot of them, are done in people's houses.
Yeah.
Vocals are tracked. I have a gold record hanging on the wall for drums I tracked in a room smaller than your bedroom. I promise you that. In what is, I guess, what was an accounting office, just a square room with a lot of sound treatment in it. And yeah, that Kelly Clarkson record was tracked. A lot of that was tracked in a room smaller than your bedroom.
Wow. So a big part of producing is just the visual aesthetic. Getting getting that right, those good takes and that confidence that you need.
I'm not saying you have to have a completely sexy studio, but make the aesthetics look right.
Yeah, if you've got those like white fluorescent lights,
Doctor's lights.
yeah, if you've got those right above your vocals and white wall, right, you're not, the singer's probably not going to give you the best vocal performance, or your guitar player is going to be like, I just want to get out of here. This does not feel comfortable.
Yeah, I was reading an article with a producer who had worked with Barry White on Let's Get It On, that kind of thing. And they said he had to turn down drop.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You gotta kind of match the vibe of the song and the vibe of the artist, and if they're into incense and candles, light some incense and candles to make them, comfortable. Okay, I know that we've been talking so much already about this whole psychology thing and how it's all playing in, and we've got so much more to talk about, and so we are going to put a pin in it for right now, and I'm telling you right now that there's more you want to hear. We're gonna drop some bombs, but you're gonna have to wait till next
A
Monday.
huge bomb.
Like the atom bomb, but bigger, like a
An Albert bomb.
an Albert bomb.
Because Adam, he was cool. He's pretty big, but Albert's even bigger.
But you have to wait till next Monday. I promise you, we've already recorded it. There's so much that we've dropped on that one, and you're not gonna. I just don't want you to sit here for 2 hours listening to our stinking voices. I know you might want to, but we don't want to listen to our own voice for 2 hours. So you're gonna have to wait till next Monday. But until then, this is Nashville signing out.
Peace.